This is Plant-Based Briefing. Homesteading is a viral trend, but butchery gone awry is its dark side, by Jessica Scott Reed at sentientmedia.org. And I'm Marian Erickson, host of this curated content plant-based podcast, where I narrate articles on plant-based and vegan living with permission in about 10 minutes or less every weekday. And I've been on a Sentient Media kick apparently lately. This is the third one in a row from them. They're a nonprofit news organization, and I'm thrilled to have permission to share their content. So now let's get to today's plant-based briefing. Homesteading is a viral trend, but butchery gone awry is its dark side, by Jessica Scott Reed at sentientmedia.org. A growing number of backyard farmers confess they have no idea what they're doing. Since the early 2020s, the homesteading trend has exploded in popularity. Off-grid in theory, but often online in practice, millennials in particular have heated a desire to move to the country to grow and raise their own food. Some romanticize a simpler, more traditional life. See the adjacent tradwife trend linked here. Others are looking to reject the burdens of technology. The trend even got a boost from the backyard chicken craze, which is sometimes referred to as the gateway animal, as more homesteaders are looking to farm their own meat. But the rise in homesteading has a dark side. Countless stories of animal farming and butchering gone awry. Despite the wholesome fantasy you see on social media, experts warn would-be homesteaders that raising animals for meat is harder than it looks. Push past the cottagecore Instagram reels and the how to build a chicken coop YouTube videos, and you will find numerous online discussion groups and threads packed with homesteaders seeking how-to guidance. On Reddit, for example, the Homestead subreddit currently boasts 3 million members, with questions about tree care, jam making, weed control, and tractor repair. But deeper into the subreddit, you will come across homesteaders asking more difficult questions, sharing their troubling concerns about animals, including sick livestock, wild predators, and slaughter screw-ups. Some of them went quick, some did not. Botched my first chicken slaughter, writes one homesteader on the subreddit. Knife was only sharp enough to hurt the chicken. Then we frantically ran around trying to find something to get the job done, only to find not good options and hurting this poor cockerel. Finally, I tried to break its neck but couldn't, so I strangled it. The lesson learned, according to the poster, we both need to learn how to properly sharpen knives. On Butcher Day, we thought we were prepared, writes another about slaughtering pigs named Ham, Bacon, Sausage, and Porky. We had brought a .44 caliber rifle instead of a .22 just in case. The first 3 went down fine and were stuck quickly. The last one raised its head just as I was pulling the trigger, and it hit her jaw. I felt gutted that she had to go through that pain and suffering till we could get her down. Some users are open to admitting their lack of experience. I'd never slaughtered animals before, laments one homesteader about killing ducks. Some of them went quick, some did not. Some of the big ducks had a bad go of it. Meg Brown, a 6th-generation cattle rancher in Northern California, says she's surrounded by people jumping on the homesteading bandwagon when many of them don't understand just how hard it is to farm animals. It looks a lot different online than it is in real life, she tells Sentient. It's more challenging, and not everyone has the knowledge or experience to properly take on the task. I had a friend that got a bunch of chicks and let her baby and her kid handle them, Brown says, and her kids got salmonella. And many new homesteaders want to get 1 cow or 1 pig, and they want me to sell them that, and I refuse to sell herd animals as single. I think that's really cruel. DIY homesteaders turn to YouTube. YouTube has democratized how we learn, including endeavors as high-risk and complicated as raising and killing farm animals. I've been thinking a lot lately about raising animals for meat, one Redditor writes, learning the basics through YouTube videos, etc. Videos that tick off the steps of how to kill and butcher animals at home, linked here, are abundant on the platform. Yet even basic professional butchering courses take several weeks of study and often require hands-on training. For those homesteaders who express concerns about butchering animals, including the guilt they might feel, members of the online community are ready with tips on how to get the job done. I just don't know if I would be able to do it, writes one Redditor learning with YouTube. Raise an animal from a baby to adult and then, right at its prime, butcher it? Do you have to wrestle with any guilt? There's plenty of advice. Just commit, and pulling the trigger on an animal you've cared for months is never easy, but we do it for the good of the family. A number of Redditors offer tips for how to promptly cut the jugular vein. Others advise how to get animals accustomed to human interaction in the months leading up to slaughter to ensure they're calm when we walk up to pop the shot. Meanwhile, even lifelong rancher Brown won't slaughter animals herself. I have a professional come and do it, she explains. I would mess up. Many would-be homesteaders don't realize that animals have personalities, she says, and you can get attached to them. Then you have to kill them after you've raised them, something she herself admits she does not want to do. Different paths to homesteading. Researchers of homesteading say there are some differences between newcomers and homesteaders who come from a farming background. In his book, Shelter from the Machine, Homesteaders in the Age of Capitalism, author Dr. Jason Strange explores the divide between what he calls the Hicks, more traditional homesteaders with rural roots, and the hippies, who are newer to the lifestyle and tend to be motivated more by counterculture ideas. Strange's book looks at homesteaders pre-social media, mostly older generations, including those who began homesteading in the early 1970s. Yet Strange doesn't see the so-called millennial homesteaders as all that different. Today's homesteaders are still interested in moving away from mainstream capitalist culture towards greater authenticity and self-reliance. Legacy of vegetarian homesteaders. For many homesteaders, a core part of the journey towards self-reliant subsistence, says Strange, is eating the animals they raised and slaughtered themselves. The ability to feed homegrown meat to one's family is celebrated as an important goal in many online homesteading circles. It's called a blessing and cited as the ultimate proof of a successful homestead. But there's another subculture within the subculture, homesteaders who are doing it without animals, a micro-trend with roots dating back to at least the 1970s. Even back in the early days of the modern homesteading movement, says Strange, particularly amongst the counterculture folks, the hippies, you would have found folks who were intentionally not raising and slaughtering animals. The more vegetarian side of homesteading is also thriving online, with some accounts touting the benefits of meatless homesteading and tips on how to homestead without animals, or even ways to make money on the homestead without selling animal products. See links here. Last year on Reddit Homestead, a subreddit dedicated to homesteading, a would-be homesteader was struggling with allergies to farm animals and zoning restrictions. Am I a real homesteader without animals? RetroMama77 asked. It's not a prerequisite, one Redditor responded. If you're making efforts to be self-sustaining, you're a homesteader, answered another. After all, as yet a third homesteader admits, it's actually not fun to raise animals to kill them. You just listened to Homesteading is a Viral Trend, but Butchery Gone Awry is its Dark Side by Jessica Scott Reed at sentientmedia.org, and I'm Marian Erickson, your host. And this article brings to mind one of the chapters in the Humane Hoax anthology. I'll put a link to that book in the show notes. It's amazing. I learned so much. There's people doing such shocking things out there, but this particular chapter is by John Sanbanmatsu. It's called Murder, She Wrote, Legitimizing the Meat Economy with Femivorism. And femivores is a term that the New York Times coined to describe women flocking to farming, hunting, and butchery as a way to achieve a sense of empowerment. They're tired of being tethered to the corporate machine, so now she'll do the tethering. And he talks about how they don't want to just be self-sufficient. They don't want to do plant farming. No, the domination of animals keeps them from sinking into traditional domesticity, giving them a feeling of power. So it's a fascinating look at the homesteading movement with this femivore lens, and gives examples of the women loving and caring for their babies, their farm animals, but then displaying casual indifference to the fate of these babies when they're either killing them outright through slaughter or killing them through malign neglect. So you can check out that book and that chapter, or check out the Hope for the Animals podcast, episode 80, where I'm a guest with Hope talking about this book and this chapter in particular. I'll link that in the show notes as well, or you can find it at hopefortheanimalspodcast.org. So please share this episode with anyone who might benefit, and thanks for listening.